National Operations Center of Excellence. We're going to go ahead and get started. As I've been saying before, your phone will be muted throughout the presentations. We will be taking questions at the end. The chat box is there on the right. I'm going to just make sure that everybody knows a little bit about NOCO and the site, and then I'll turn it over quickly to Paul Joden, who's going to be hosting and leading the webinar. So just for those who aren't aware, the National Operations Center of Excellence focuses on spreading information and knowledge around transportation systems management and operations, including traffic incident management. Our website is up there on the screen. There's a number of resources from the broader TISMO and ITS community that are there, including quite a few TIM resources. Additionally, we're linked into FHWA's TIM database, so please be sure to check out the website. Also there on the bottom left of the screen is ways to get involved with NOCO, and at the bottom center are the slides for today's presentations. As I said, it's National Traffic Incident Response Week, and we're thankful to FHWA's leadership in leading this effort, and of course all of you out there in the States who are doing quite a bit of work to increase awareness around TIM this week. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Paul Joden. Let me just unmute Paul real quick. Paul, I'll turn it over to you.
Got it. Thanks, Adam, and thanks everybody for joining us today to kick off National Traffic Incident Response Awareness Week and the activities you'll be hearing about today, as well as some information we'll be sharing from you. So today's agenda is, I'll speak for just another second. We're going to have Mark Curley, who is Jim and my boss here at Federal Highway. Rebecca Brewster will give us an update on the annual self-assessment and where we stand nationally. And then Chuck Yorks will give us an update on the various activities for Response Week that have gone on throughout the country, which is very impressive. We've grown substantially this year under Jim Ostrich's leadership with this program, so we look forward to that. But before we get started, we've asked Mark Curley, who is our office director here at Federal Highway and Traffic Incident Management, Defense Management Team, and many of you know, or some of you that don't know, that Jim and I have had a passion for traffic incident management for a number of years, even before each of us joined Federal Highway, as a matter of fact. But Mark Curley has grown to, I think it's safe to say, enjoy the program and have passion. So not only is he supportive with everything that Jim and I do, well, maybe not everything, but mostly everything that we do, he has also drank the Kool-Aid, so to speak, and has taken a leadership role within our program and helps us with many activities that an office director doesn't necessarily need to get involved with. So with that, Mark, if you could open us up a little bit.
Okay, Paul, thank you very much. And yes, I do agree with almost everything that you and Jim do. It's a pleasure working with you guys, and with pleasure working with everyone in the TIM community throughout the country. It's really been a real pleasure over the last several years to be engaged in this program, and it's so meaningful. It really makes a difference. The passion of the people throughout the whole country. It's really a privilege to have this as part of the office portfolio. So I'm blessed. I'm thankful. I would like to thank everyone that's on the line and took the time to join us today. This is it's a big deal. The third National Traffic Incident Response Awareness Week, which hadn't been around all that long, and it took quite a bit to get to this point where we could have an event like this with participation by everyone throughout the country. This year's theme being traffic incident response is everyone's responsibility. That's very true, and we need to do more and more to get out there with the public appreciation for the role of traffic incident management and the lives that are put at stake every day to do this well. So today we're joining efforts in probably every nation of the state, which is incredible. I can't believe that over 3 years we have such large participation and with creative and innovative ways to, to play this week and to, again, raise that awareness in each state. I really look forward to seeing some of the things that come in of different ways that folks chose to celebrate and make this a big deal in their state or the area where they live. I think over the last few years we've seen a lot of really cool stuff done that's used by others and used by ourselves to help inspire us and to do even better to reach as many people as possible. So it really is, as Paul said, about raising awareness to the importance of saving lives of responders and motorists. FHWA remains committed to working with the responder community in this critical mission by supporting enhanced training, preparedness for responders, and a host of other activities that we could do. And we realize we're a small part of it, that there's a lot of work done with coordinating and working with so many others. So we thank all of you for that. To date, you'll hear over 370,000 responders have received the standardized training, and it's only been 6 years, a little bit over 6 years that that's happened. So tremendous achievement there with a long ways to go. The number of public safety academies having adopted the training and institutionalized into their curriculum, over 50 right now, and I'm sure the number is probably even greater once we start getting good data from all around the country. I'm sure that map's going to look even more and more populated. So those are all good signs of showing that training is being institutionalized and that it's here to stay. Whether you're a recruit or you're in for your annual training, all these opportunities are there. In addition, the collection and use of TIM data and performance measures has greatly increased over the last couple of years and will only increase more in the future as there's just a lot more growth and maturity and visibility on the importance of using the data for better traffic incident management, but also telling the traffic incident management story. With good data, we could tell how fast our lanes are being opened up and how secondary crashes are being reduced. So, so many people need to hear that story, but again, without the data, it's hard to do that. Certainly, a TIM movement, to quote someone who introduced me, there is a TIM movement going on throughout the country, and I think it's to change the way the nation views traffic incident management. And again, I'm stealing from someone else who used to work in this office. I think he said that about 8 or 9 years ago, that the nation really has to have a change in culture, a way that the nation views traffic incident management. There needs to be a change, and I think by having a third National Traffic Incident Response Week and everything else that's going on, I think that change is well on its way, alive and well throughout the country, in every state. And we're pleased to be a part of that, and we want to be a part of that. So again, thank you for joining us today and for all that you do. There's no doubt, there's no question that the work that everyone's doing is making a huge difference to so many. So with that, I'll turn it back to Paul, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mark. We really are making changing the way traffic incidents are handled in this country, slow but sure. Adam, are you going to put the PowerPoint slides up? Heaven forbid I talk without slides. So just wanted to give you an update. Jim and I are going to provide an update on the Federal Highway program. Share some things with you that you may or may not know about. Just a reminder, though, why we're doing what we do. I'm assuming if you're on this call, you know this already, but I just feel it's a good time to provide the priorities. The responders are our number one priority, right? We want everyone to come home. We know there's an issue out there. We don't know how big it is. That's why we're trying to collect data on this. But Same thing with road users. We want to reduce secondary crashes. It's important. So safety is a big part of it. It's the big part of what we do. But also it's important to keep our roadways open and for quality of life and commerce and everything else. So it's an important thing. Just a reminder, most of you are familiar with this. I just still think we can't be reminded enough about the law enforcement and fire and towing, and the towing folks that are still getting killed at a higher rate than all of us, transportation as well, safety service patrols and DOTs who respond to incidents. But also, another number we don't have, but we're trying to get, is the number of responders that are injured, often life-changing or career-ending injuries. So, we're on that mission. Just a graphic to kind of remind everybody. One of the reasons we're here with those response vehicles, and the many other pictures, there's some ugliness in the dangers of what many of you do every single day. So I'm just going to give you an update today on the performance measures that we're in pursuit of, if you will. Secondary crashes, responder struck by incidents. Those are, when we're talking about responder safety and motorist safety, this is the data that we need. A secondary crash can also be responder struck by incident. We're also roadway clearance time, the time on scene, and incident. The first three bullets there are available in the model minimum uniform crash criteria that in the newest edition that's been out about a year. And so I urge you all to reach out and, if necessary, irritate your Traffic Records Coordinating Committee in your area to get this data, the first three bullets, included in the crash report, so we can really improve on the data collection that we have. So one of the things that I thought I'd share with you today, because a big part of Response Week is about responder safety. So how do we identify responders who are struck? So on the crash report, it's actually identified as a pedestrian, even though the responder is not what many of us view as a pedestrian. But on the crash report, it's identified as a pedestrian. So in the muck is under the person's data elements, person type P4 contains element for the where to identify the incident responder, and if yes, if you click on yes with according to the muck, then it can bring up which responder discipline was actually struck. So, if you need guidance on this, or if you have what we're going to ask you all today is that you can all do your little part in advancing traffic incident management and the safety of responders. And this is one way that you can do it is by urging your inclusion in your crash report, and that is often through the Traffic Records Coordinating Committee in your state. So, and these are, I won't read these all to you, but these are also where the data elements are. The secondary crash is in C3. C2 is crash date and time, is roadway clearance. That's roadway clearance time. And then the other data elements as well. So we have this information when you were able to get in front of the Traffic Records Coordinating Committee, and you want to make an argument, knowing that it's in the muck. The crash reports are based on the muck. They have to be, in order to get federal safety money, you have to be at least 75% in compliance with the muck data elements. So that's again a good good argument to make is being armed with this information. We're trying to get that included. So we've made some progress over the last few years with the Everyday Counts initiative. 9 states are now collecting at least one of the TIM performance measures. And 10 states will add the measures on the crash report very soon. Some as early as early 2019. In 3 states, is an important aspect of this is training law enforcement how to collect the data, so that there's a lot of questions oftentimes, there's some misunderstandings. So, but we're seeing 3 states take a leadership role in training the law enforcement on this particular aspect. 6 states are also improving what the TMC is collecting. You know, some TMCs, a handful have been collecting it for a number of years, but over the last few years we've made significant improvement, at least within 6 states. So we're on our way to having some national data. I just want to show you just a graphic of the various states who are collecting the data through the crash report. The dark blue is collecting all 3: Nevada, Arizona, Iowa, Kentucky, Tennessee, Florida, Virginia. And then I won't read them all to you, but the roadway clearance time is the lighter blue. Secondary crash is also in a different shade of blue as well. We're making progress. 2 years ago, it may have been 3 states up there now. So again, like everything else with traffic incident management, we are making progress. It's slow but sure. So, our overall goal is to advance safety and operations at the scene. We're going to be, over the next few years, Jim and I have identified under Mark's guidance and blessing, we're going to continue to focus on traditional programs such as the training, the Jim leads, overall program development, through the TIM committees, any other kind of capacity building that we can participate in. But we're also going to try to take a leadership and a liaison role with some of this advancing technologies, connected and automated vehicles. Computer-aided dispatch is something that is underutilized. We're going to be pushing that in the next couple of years. Data collection and use, we've made progress, but we still got a long way to go to really have an impact using data. And then accident reconstruction, all the rapidly advancing technologies with accident reconstruction, with UAS and similar things. So we're going to keep doing the things we've been doing and hopefully have a foot in the technology. The business case, we're developing a new business case. We have a contractor researching what are the items that can be included in our business case. It's changed over the years, so stay tuned for that. And then our roadmap, again, we're in the process of developing a 5-year roadmap, which we'll share with all of you at some point. That it's going to have all the items that we talked about a few minutes. But what's the future look like? The future, we're already better trained as TIM responders. The TIM responder community is better trained, and they'll continue to be more sophisticated as we move forward. There's no doubt. We'll continue to use data and identify needs and focus. So there's just a lot of ways. Once you have the data, you can use it. We see some connected and automated vehicle opportunities into the future. And Jim is actually participating in a research project that's going to be focused on public safety in connected and automated vehicles. We're already seeing an increased use of practical exercise facilities. There's at least 4 that I know of that have built throughout the country. So we hope that we can expand that. We're interesting this fall, this October. There's the statewide and our regional TIM conferences. There's probably close to 10, with probably somewhere between 15 and 20 states participating. That's not an exact number, but I know there was a number of them, and I attended one where there was 7 or 8 states. again, computer-aided dispatch, where we see more. We see that as being an opportunity to better communication, emerging technologies, and then crowdsourcing for operations is something that that you're going to see, that we're seeing maybe a game changer on early notification of incidents, with some crowdsourcing applications throughout the country coming in faster than they're receiving notification of incidents through the 911 center. With that, I'll hand over to my partner in crime here, Mr. James Ostrich. Jim?
Okay, Paul, can you hear me? Can you read me?
Sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Paul. And greetings to everyone. Great participation today. Paul and the team pulling this together over at the Operations Center of Excellence, our contractor, again, at Fleming, who's going to speak, I believe, after me, or no, Rebecca, then Chuck. As of today, we're actually over 371,000, just under 372,000 trained nationally. Huge accomplishment, both web-based and the in-person training that really, as Paul and Mark have said, you guys, the states, the TIM champions, the leaders in all 50 states, D.C. and Puerto Rico, deserve all the credit for this major accomplishment. Yeah, we still have a ways to go to reach that million plus, but there's no doubt in our mind here, Paul and I, and again our team here led by Director Curley, that we'll get to that number. Just the amazing growth, as was mentioned earlier, in the number of academies, public safety, police, fire, rescue, EMS academies that you all have engaged and managed to convince to adopt the 4-hour training is just something that is remarkable in itself. And as Paul said, more academies are being added just about every week, every other week now. It's we don't hear about them, so we encourage you to share that information, and certainly any other major accomplishments, whether it's legislative or policy efforts that you all working together with your stakeholders accomplish. So with that, I'm going to move on. This slide here, our implementation progress map, that is many of you I'm sure have seen, and we've recently asked all the states to take another look at the numbers of responders to be trained in your state, and we're steadily getting replies from the states as far as whether they want to change their number, increase it or decrease it, or leave it as is. It's up to you, but we've received a lot of inquiries from our executive leadership group, the executives that, by the way, we meet with tomorrow. We meet with them twice a year face-to-face, and then we have 2 phone calls. But anyway, we've heard from some of the executives whether our numbers were accurate. They felt, I guess you could say, that some of the numbers look low. So that 1.150 million down below, total responders to be trained, could actually increase, I believe. But regardless, you can see the tremendous efforts. As Paul's saying, the traffic incident management, even though we have still so much to learn and really understand through the data collection program that Paul leads, and performance measures and everything else, really, as far as supporting and encouraging or making the business case, getting our leaders to maintain their support. TIM as a priority program and that it receives financial support, because it's really low-hanging fruit and brings to bear tremendous benefits to our society, congestion mitigation, and certainly, as Paul said, that we all get to go home, not just responders, but all our families and friends, et cetera. This map that you see here, as Paul and Mark have said, is a new visual, new graphic, if you will, that we just launched a couple weeks ago that shows the academies, as we said. Obviously the flame is fire rescue, and the blue badge that you see represents law enforcement. And there actually is a couple more that I know of that you'll see on the next round of the report. Here's the actual listing that we've been sharing now for a few iterations over the past several months. Take a minute to look at that. If you don't see yourself in there, if you see an error, or if there's one that's pending, anything, just please shoot Mark or Paul and I an email and let us know. We want to make sure you get credit for all your work. That's it for me. I just want to say real quick again to Paul and Mark's remarks that, you know, the education piece, we'll talk more in a minute, but the education piece, the public outreach and education piece can't be stressed enough. As Mark said, you know, tremendous that so many more states now are engaging, not only this week, doing, you know, more TIM classes, for example, 4-hour sessions this week, whether social media, blogging, tweeting, Facebook, everything in our power. There's actually some proclamations being signed by governors that some of the states have engaged in. All of these things will give us more visibility, give you more visibility, and I can't stress how important that is. So with that, Paul, back to you.
We have truly made progress. It's been slow progress, but it has been progress, and it's you that has made the progress. When I say we, I don't mean Jim and and Mark. I mean you, folks like you, folks that came before you have made the difference. Jim and I just basically try to coordinate things here at the national level, but you guys are the ones that have and can continue to make a difference. So we're very fortunate to have with us Ms. Rebecca Brewster, who is one of several contractors that we have that are just fantastic, but they also, we're fortunate in that they get it. They're part of the movement, if you will. So yes, they are contractors and they get paid like all of us, but they really have, you know, go the extra mile. We have two of them on with us today, Chuck Yorks and Rebecca Brewster, but there are others, and I want to just reach out to them and thank them. But Rebecca has been you know, involved with traffic incident management for a long time. Before I was here at Federal Highway, she was with the TIM Coalition years ago and helped develop the NUG, so a National Unified Goal. So with that, we'll pass you over to my good friend Rebecca Brewster. Maybe I will. Rebecca? Adam, are we having technical difficulties?
She looks muted. Rebecca's muted, I think.
Rebecca should be good to go. Sorry about that, my fault.
There we go. I was talking to myself, and it was feeling quite lonely.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Thanks, Paul, for the introduction. As Paul said, I'm Rebecca Brewster, and I'm president of the American Transportation Research Institute, or ATRI, and we're the trucking industry's not-for-profit research organization. And as Paul indicated, we've been involved in traffic incident management research for over 25 years now, and that's based in large part because we are so passionate about what you all do in traffic incident management to keep the roadway system operating efficiently. And if I can just for a second wear my trucking industry hat as opposed to my TIM contractor hat, let me put some context in that business case for you. Annually at ATRI, we do an analysis of the cost of congestion to the trucking industry, and in our most recent release, using our truck GPS data set, we quantified 1.2 billion hours of lost trucking industry productivity in 2016 as a result of congestion on the national highway system. 1.2 billion hours. That's the equivalent of 425,000 truck drivers sitting still for an entire year. And when you monetize that just as an opportunity cost for the industry, it's about $74.5 billion. So we're very serious about and very committed to what you do to keep the transportation system moving efficiently. So thank you for your work, and we'll be very actively involved in promoting National Traffic Incident Response Week this week as well. Now, to the real reason I'm here, I'm going to spend the next few minutes providing some results from the 2018 Traffic Incident Management Capability Maturity Self-Assessment, or the TIM Self-Assessment for short. As you know, Federal Highway first developed the TIM Self-Assessment in 2002, and it was developed as a way to evaluate the state of TIM practice and identify where nationally Federal Highway could invest resources to advance TIM practice. Probably equally important was a way to provide you as state and regional and local TIM program managers with a way to objectively assess your local TIM program performance and identify those areas for improvement. As you know, if you've participated in the TIM self-assessment, we use the scores from those earliest assessments as the baseline against which we monitor progress each year going forward. And certainly in the last 15 years since we've been doing the self-assessment, there have been a number of changes in TIM practice. TIM practice has advanced. Things like the creation and deployment of the National TIM Responder Training Course. So over the years, we've implemented several major revisions to the self-assessment, including that most recent one that we did in 2015. So here you see the TIM self-assessment national scores for the last decade. The scores peaked in 2014 at 74.2%, but we saw a drop in 2015 down to 67.1 as a result of the pretty significant revisions we did that year. You may recall, if you've participated, 2015 was the year we started scoring the questions on participation in the National TIM Training Course, and we also started providing more specific scoring guidance for each of the 55 questions in the self-assessment, which limited the subjectivity in how a self-assessment could be scored. This year, 2018, we saw the national score but go back above 70% at 70, at big revision in 2015. The TIM self-assessment, of course, is a voluntary activity that Federal Highway encourages all TIM committees to complete annually. And ideally, we'd love to have submittals from the top 75 metro areas in terms of population. And for those states that don't have one of the top 75 metro areas, we would like to get a submittal from that state on their activities. And certainly any location with an active TIM committee is welcome to complete and submit a TIM self-assessment each year. Here's the latest we have from Federal Highway on the location of active TIM committees around the country. And since I've been working with the self-assessment and with Federal Highway on this, it's been very gratifying to see the number of locations grow. And certainly if you are part of a TIM committee that is not represented by one of these red dots, please reach out to Paul so we can make sure to get that added to the map as well. When we first developed the TIM self-assessment in 2002, the idea behind it was that it would be a tool that would be completed by a TIM committee or a TIM program as a group exercise, and it would involve all the stakeholder groups involved in traffic incident management, many of the folks represented in those bullet points you see there. That original vision for the self-assessment hasn't changed, And so starting last year in the 2017 self-assessment, we added a question at the beginning of the self-assessment to find out which stakeholder groups were actively involved in completing that year's assessment. Here you see the results from that question for 2017, the blue bars, and then for this year, 2018, in the orange bars. And I was very pleased to see that across all responder types but one, we saw increases in the number of assessments that included participation from the wide range of TIM stakeholders. So that tells us, if you look at here under transportation, that 89% of the assessments completed this year included transportation, 52% included law enforcement, 39% included fire and rescue, and you can see from there. The other category there is typically consultants who work with the TIM committees and take part in the annual assessments. So now a look at some of the key findings from this year's self-assessment. We had the same number of submittals as last year, 98 locations submitted a TIM self-assessment in the annual cycle. And as a reminder, the annual cycle runs between June and August, the end of August. Although this year we had several different locations submit than we had last year. So the numbers stayed the same, but some mix in the locations that submitted. The overall national score was a 70.4, and that represents nearly a 39% increase over the baseline, which is really good progress. We also look at average scores for the top 40 metro areas. Again, that's population-based, which you see are higher than the national score at 75.2. The top 75 metro areas collectively earned a 73.3, and then all other locations that submitted a TIM self-assessment this year averaged a 64.3. And that range of scoring is fairly intuitive, as you would assume that the more established and better resourced TIM programs would typically be in your larger metropolitan areas, although certainly there are some exceptions to that as well. In each year's annual analysis report, we always look at the top 5 scoring questions and the 5 questions that score the lowest on that year's assessment. That helps us identify program areas where TIM performance is consistently strong and other areas where additional resources may be needed to improve the scores, areas where Federal Highway can focus its program of work. Here you see the 5 top scoring questions in rank order for the 2018 self-assessment. And I will note that while the ranking changes slightly from year to year, these 5 questions are consistently among the highest scoring in the TIM essay. So these are 5 areas where we have consistently scored well and where TIM programs across the country seem to have institutionalized these various program areas. Also consistent year to year is the fact that our lowest scoring questions typically show up in the TIM performance measures subsection of the self-assessment. Although they're typically the lowest scored, they're also the ones where we've seen the highest increases above the baseline. And we attribute that in the National Analysis Report in large part to Federal Highway's leadership in the area of TIM performance measures and all they've done to really encourage the adoption of and use of performance measures. In this year's self-assessment, 3 of the 5 lowest scoring questions have to do with secondary crashes and how that data is captured and used, and the other 2 are focused on performance measures related to incident clearance time. As I mentioned, the TIM performance measures questions are consistently among the lowest scored, but there is continuous progress year to year, and you see here the improvement in score from last year for each of those 5 lowest scoring questions in this year's self-assessment. And with the exception of the question on performance targets for incident clearance time, the other 4 questions saw increases in the average score from last year. So good news, again, continual progress, and that's certainly what we would all like to see in any type of self-assessment. Now moving to the National TIM training course. Question 13 asks what percentage of the TIM responders in the region identified as needing training have received that training. and Jim talked about those percentages and how we're seeing those numbers go up. So in the 2018 self-assessment, in order to score your program a 4, you would need to have had more than 45% of the eligible TIM responders in your program area to have already received that training. Since we first started scoring this question in 2015, we have consistently raised the thresholds for that scoring guidance, and we've raised those thresholds for how you score your program to correspond with the increased numbers of responders who have been trained nationally as tracked by Federal Highway. So when I prepared this slide and when we did the national analysis report, we were using 363,000 responders trained, but as Jim reported, we're at 372,000 now, and that represents 32.1% of the responders trained. So really pleased to see those really strong numbers. So here we've tracked this question 13 over the years since we first started scoring it in 15. And as you can see across the bottom row of that table, the average scores, the increasing score thresholds have had an impact on the average score for that question, which dropped to 2.35 last year, but we're now up to 2.61. And this would tell us that on average, the participating TIM programs have between 26 and 35% of their eligible responders trained. And as we just reported, that corresponds with the 32% that Federal Highway has tracked nationally. So a good alignment between the TIM self-assessment respondents and where we are in Federal Highway's tracking. I want to talk just a little bit more about the TIM performance measures section because it is such a focus area for Federal Highway. Last year, we did a slight modification to the questions in this subsection so that we are no longer asking just questions that capture all 3 of the performance measures in one question, but we've broken them out so that we ask individually questions about what you're doing in terms of roadway clearance time, separately from incident clearance time, separately from secondary crashes. And recognizing that it's one thing to measure performance, but it's equally and perhaps even more important that we use that data to impact your operations, we look at how each of the TIM performance measures is being used to influence your operation. And you can see that between last year and this year, scores for, on that particular question, how are you using the data, scores for all 3 of the performance measures has increased. And we're even seeing now the question on the use of roadway clearance time is now above its baseline score. So again, continued progress, good headway here in terms of improving the overall scores and more importantly, improving the state of traffic incident management by using that critical data to influence our operations. Looking separately at how those 3 questions were scored by the top 40 and top 75 metro areas compared to non-top 75 metro areas, you see again that across the top 40 metro areas, scores are generally higher, most likely being the impact of better resourced programs, which means increased capabilities for collecting, analyzing, and ultimately using that TIM performance measures data. And understanding that part of resourcing a TIM program is having the dollars to do so, we checked against the average score for question 8 on the self-assessment, which asks about the availability of funds for traffic incident management activities. And you can see those scores also reflect more resources among the top 45 metro areas, the top 75 metro areas, compared to the non-top 75 metro areas. This year, we added a new non-scored question in the support section, which is the 3rd section of the self-assessment, in order to learn more about the level of public safety computer-aided dispatch integration with TMC software, and Paul mentioned that as an area of focus. So here you see the question and the recommended scoring guidance. Now, we ask self-assessment participants to provide a score just so we could evaluate sort of what is state of practice in this area, but we did not include those scores either in your individual scores or in the overall national score. This was just to establish a baseline, if you will, of where TIM programs are in this area. Among the programs that responded to this non-scored question, the average score was a 2.29. The TIM self-assessment it's a great tool for evaluating where your program is, but it also provides a great roadmap for how to move your program to the next level in those areas where your scores might not be as high as you would like to see them. When you submit a TIM self-assessment, you know that you're sent a summary report that recaps your scores for all questions, but also provides guidance on what your program could do to increase your score for each question. Paul, do you want to talk a little more about the value of this guidance?
I do. Thanks, Rebecca. Yeah, so, you know, the self-assessment helps us identify where you're at, where you compare with other similar type programs throughout the country. It helps us nationally to identify where, you know, areas of weakness or areas that we might want to focus on. But it is also an ideal framework to advance your program. You know, so, you know, we're asking folks to take a look at the self-assessment, find out what one or two things you can do to advance your program. So you know, we don't expect people to take and for the 50 questions or so that we have, improve on all of them. But what are those one or two things that you can do to advance your program so we can continue to make progress? I noticed a few, there was, you know, while we made progress this year, there were a number of programs that basically the score stayed the same. So I'm actually going to be reaching back to a number of you folks in different areas of the country. And so I urge you to use the self-assessment for these actions. So for each level, there's an action, a recommended action that you can take that you can go from one level to the other. So in this slide, for example, it tells you how you can go from the level 1 to a level 2 easy enough. So I urge you, you know, in your leadership role within your state or that region or within your committee, if you don't have a committee, start a committee. Really be the champion for this, for continued advancement. So, and that's where we really could, you know, provide a benefit to our partners by that continued use of the self-assessment and the actions to go from one level to the other. Ask for your help with that.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Paul. I'll close out my portion of the program. This is the team we have for the TIM self-assessment. We've been very privileged at ATRI to be involved in the self-assessment since its start in 2002. So I hope if you have any questions about it, you'll feel free to reach out to us. We're easy to find at trucking.org. And I should note that even though the self-assessment cycle, the annual cycle, runs between June and August, if you have not done a self-assessment but would like to do one for your program, we keep that online portal open year-round. And so you can do the self-assessment, do it as a group exercise, and then we'll send you one of those summary reports, which, as Paul indicated, also contains some suggested actions to move your program, advance your program along in each of those questions on the self-assessment. So with that, thanks everyone, and I'll turn it back to you, Paul.
Thanks, Rebecca. Thanks for giving us that update. So the next presenter is Mr. Chuck Yorks from Gannett Fleming. He is another passionate contractor that we have who travels all over the country doing training and performing other TIM-related activities. Right now, we're lucky to get him, actually, because he's on a tour throughout Pennsylvania to provide the training during this memorable week, Awareness Week. So he's been helping us on with this Incident Response Awareness Week. Jim has been working closely with Chuck, and Chuck is going to give us an update on the various activities that we know are happening this week. So, Chuck, if you could take it from here.
Thanks very much, Paul, and good afternoon, everyone, and good morning to my friends on the West Coast. I'm very happy to be here, and I'd like to start out by giving some special thanks to two of my colleagues, Lori Matkowski and Becca Zimmerman, who have helped in our mission during Traffic Incident Response Awareness Week, which is to both encourage and facilitate the sharing of ideas and programs, and I'm lucky to be able to do that today. Our theme this year, Everybody's Responsibility, what we basically did was we borrowed the theme from Work Zone Awareness Week. In so many ways, our traffic incident management areas and response areas are very much like work zones, and in some ways very much unlike work zones. But the responsibility that we have, as whether we're contractors working, maintenance folks, tow drivers, EMS folks, whatever, we have that same responsibility to do what my hero Rusty James used to say: protect us, protect them, and minimize the impact on traffic. And I think that's a common mission. So we'd like to carry this theme forward and continue to work on it. And at this time, we've talked to some of the states who've been involved in our monthly calls about our ability to make this part of a bigger transportation system management and operations, a TISMO approach, in that we involve the community and transportation planners, that we start for that designing for operations, that we talk with constructors and make them aware of their responsibilities, and then the maintainers who do it, and all of us as end users of the improvements that we have. Tim Atwork has been host to a set of resources, and this year they were available again. We appreciate all the folks who have offered us materials in the past. I'd like to thank the National Operations Center of Excellence, in particular Adam Hops, for his considerable help in this year and in past years. We also produced a flyer that we've asked some of the state DOT others, representatives of various disciplines, to share our abilities to promote the program continue to grow because folks have decided to share what it is they have done. We're going to talk a little bit about that in the coming slides quickly, about what some states have told us they're doing. We encourage anyone who has any information on anything that goes on this week, samples, videos, specific, if Gary Ogletree and Don Gedge were successful in getting Tennessee to post certain things on their message boards, what seemed to work, and how did we engage our fellow responders and the public in passing this message along. For the past few months, we did a monthly roll call of states and asked folks to let us know what it was that they were doing. We really do expect that every one of our states and organizations within those states are doing something this week to call special attention, because it is this special time that we have to focus and to give motorists a more consistent look across the nation as they travel, to know that this is Traffic Incident Response Awareness Week. Go through some highlights. Again, the roll call of states. Many states are engaging in Twitter and social media work. It's been a standard for the past couple of years. It continues to grow and to be an effective way to reach the responders, but to reach the public in better ways. Again, we're expecting lots of messaging on signs. Some proclamations have been issued for this week and also for other days. In Georgia, during their time conference, we had a special day set aside. It wasn't this week. It was a couple of weeks ago. But it continues to build this momentum that we are, the wave we're riding, and some of us are creating, that's been terrific. conferences, as Paul mentioned earlier, there are conferences in more and more states this week and others. So as we go through here real quickly, there was an incident management open house in Virginia, Northern Virginia, last Saturday, leading up to this. Lots of good publicity. This is not an all-encompassing list today, but we're listed on some of the slides here, some of the highlights. In particular, in Arizona, we were impressed with the fact that we were trying to engage motorist opinions and did some specific outreach to some business communities to try to get sponsorship and promotion within the private sector, which is something that we have not been all that successful doing beyond our towing and recovery and hazardous materials folks. Colorado's a TIM conference this week. They're able to debut their new dispatch center with a tour. And they've done some things working with other states. Again, multi-state coordination, it comes up a lot, but they were working with Utah and Wyoming. In our roll call of states, Florida continues to do a great job doing some exercise things, but they focus on the Florida Turnpike Enterprise has a lot of gas pumps on their facilities, and those gas pumps are running additional messages. Georgia's promoting their new hands-free law after their successful time conference. Hawaii was focused on some service patrol ride-alongs. Ride-alongs continue to be important. Idaho going after a governor's proclamation. And legislative participation. We got more more comments this year about working more closely with legislators, and we have lots of time for another call, but lots of legislative wins over the past year, and I'm sure more to come. Kentucky, a multi-state conference that's now really got an awful lot of momentum with Ohio, Indiana, and Michigan. The Quad States Conference was a great success. Louisiana, focusing on some safety service patrols, but also doing mock incident in Baton Rouge. Maryland, today, November 13th, at M&T Bank Stadium lots, they're doing an exercise and demonstration, and I'm sure getting some great media coverage out of that. They've incorporated the American Tillman Spirit Ride, which lots of folks are, and they're reaching out to other states. I know Pennsylvania Turnpike in particular is involved with them today. Massachusetts, the photograph, for those of you who can see the slide there, Massachusetts TIM effort included some TIM work as part of the Vigilant Guard exercise. It was a week-long exercise and the largest multidiscipline exercise in Massachusetts history that occurred last week. We're really anxious to see video and some other things coming from that. Michigan continues to use their video messaging in their Secretary of State offices, which engages all kinds of folks of the public. Missouri, again, training, full-scale exercise to follow today. Activities, again, they've spread across their major cities in past years and are doing it again, and outreach to emergency operations centers. Nevada has a new TIM video, and again, legislative push on enhanced move-over votes. New Jersey, TIM training. I'm most interested in the success that they're going to have in continuing to involve news media in various ways, either as trainees or coverage of the training. I'm looking forward to seeing what the folks are able to do. North Carolina has worked with local police to continue to expand certifications in law enforcement academies and to make that bigger. And North Carolina is pretty excited that they're getting underway with their training facility. Ohio, all kinds of things, but they've got their Peace Officers Academy, and they've been able to institutionalize that. Oregon is perhaps an example of something that I think is great, and it happens in many states, and I'm just pointing out Oregon because I'm aware of it, is that when you have a transfer of leadership in a program, as they did in Oregon, we go from a champion to championship, which is a larger community, and the effort in Oregon continues to grow and prosper. I saw yesterday the first of what appear to be many videos, and the photograph is from that. Jess McGraw does a great job up there, and they gathered a multidisciplinary group and kind of had a coffee conversation. Great idea. Pennsylvania, the Penn Time program in Pennsylvania, Turnpike Commission are hosting a summit along with ResponderSafety.com and national fire groups. And for the next 2 to 3 days, they're sitting down and trying to pound out improvements on such things as how to use large vehicles as blocking vehicles. Training pushes all around the state, part of which I'm involved in with Southwestern Pennsylvania Commission. Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission provided a bunch of extra resources and that kind of thing. Puerto Rico has been actively involved this year for the first time and very excited about their participation. Again, South Carolina, Shark 2 trainings continues to be this is a great time to focus on training during this week. Tennessee, EMA in particular, involved with social media promotion and advisories to the public. The 14th Kim Conference was held in October. It was a rousing success despite the fact that I was not invited again. In Texas, ride-alongs in the metro area, the folks there are really getting involved in McDonald and his folks, continuing to grow that program, and they're going to do some enforcement emphasis this week. West Virginia is going to be unveiling a new website. I haven't seen it yet. I'm going to be looking for it. Press releases on training, and they've got a special plan to get an extra 1,000 trained through their department. Wisconsin always doing multiple things. Media in 5 different regions, kicking things off with leadership, those kinds of things, and again, involving the towing and recovery community. Wyoming is kind of an all-call, using all available resources to get the word out. That is what we all do and what we all should be doing. I am very excited that there is a very strong level of participation that continues to grow, and we hope it continues in the coming years. Again, we continue to partner with National Operations Center of Excellence. The timnetwork.org website will be undergoing a little bit of a rebirth here in the near future. And we want to continue to share resources there. Contact information or email for myself and for Becca is there. And again, I'd like to thank National Volunteer Fire Council, Emergency Responder Safety Institute, Sheriff's folks, Towing and Recovery Association. All the executive leadership group folks have been involved. And I believe it's possible we may be hearing a little bit more here from Jim Ostrich on what's going on this week at a very special event on the national wall. With that, I thank you for your time. I thank you for every single thing that you have done and are doing, and we still got most of the week left if you're up to it.
Thanks, Chuck. Great presentation. It's great to hear everybody, all this activity going on throughout the country. It has grown. Very pleased to that all the partnerships that are doing their thing, how they feel they can influence things. So, Jim, are you still on? Jim?
I'm here, Paul.
Okay. So, Jim, I know we're in flux here, but do you want to just give a little bit some information on what we had planned for Thursday? It's going to rain on our parade, so to speak. But I think it would be good if you because Jim, for those of you that don't know, Jim has a lot of friends here in D.C., and only very few people can pull off what we were trying to pull off today, Thursday. But I'll just let Jim explain. But we're going to do something pretty cool as our part here in the nation's capital. So, Jim?
Well, Paul, I appreciate it, but I think I may be the bearer of bad news. Mother Nature, the weather here forecast for Thursday in the Washington, D.C. region, mid-Atlantic, and really all the way down to the southern southeast states emanating out of the Gulf is a huge front that's going to be bringing a lot of moisture, and we need more moisture. Like we need a hole in the head right now. We've had probably the wettest summer season Some say will soon be declared, in history. And with over 5 feet, over 60 inches of rain have fallen throughout the Mid-Atlantic and Southeast. So anyway, we had planned for this grand event on the National Mall, thanks to our friends with the National Park Service, and as Paul said, all our partners around within the District of Columbia, Maryland, D.C., and Pennsylvania. A big event with the U.S. Capitol in the background. All our major associations, as you heard Chuck mention, I won't go through all, the list, but just another great speaking event by executives representing those associations, and a lot of police and other response vehicles, service patrols, towers, you name it. We were going to be on the mall, but it does not look like it's going to happen. They're calling for sleet in the early a.m. till about 10 o'clock, maybe even snow. It all depends after that, and if not, rain. Pretty much 100% is the forecast for the balance of the day. So as I think Paul and Mark, we mentioned tomorrow, we have our executive leadership group coming to headquarters, and we're hosting our twice a year meeting here, and those executives will convene with Director Curley, and it's looking like we're going to regroup. You definitely have that meeting tomorrow, Wednesday, and it's an all-day meeting where we discuss all, very much the same topics that we touched on today, plus some. And Paul and Mark and myself will all be engaging the executives on these different topics. Talk about the roadmap, as Paul said, and Mark, obviously our boss, supports the future of where do we go with the TIM program, and as Paul said, I'm sorry, there's just so much that's happening with data and performance measures and the technologies. You heard Paul mention UASs and CAD and crowdsourcing, and and then the research that we're going to be doing with Turner Fairbanks, our highway research branch, with connected automated vehicles. So Paul, I don't know what to say, but I know you and we're all have our fingers crossed, but Thursday is just a day away, and I don't know what to say, brother. It's still, it doesn't matter. It's what everyone else is doing. I think, as Chuck mentioned and just went through that list, that is just heartwarming, and regardless whether we do the event this year on the mall or not, you guys out there are doing great things. I actually went to the event, by the way, in Virginia this weekend. They had an open house, Chuck mentioned, and it was phenomenal. I got to say, over at the Public Safety Operations Center in Fairfax, Virginia. So kudos to all of you, and we're going to have a great week. Make sure the public knows, and we share everything we're doing. So back to you, Paul.
Okay, thanks, Jim. So a couple of things, everybody. So just a reminder that if you have any questions, of course you all know how to reach Jim and I. In the chat pod, if you have any questions on today. I know we just provide a lot of detailed information, but I just want to emphasize at a minute the event Jim was planning on until the weather got in the way. I mean, we had a litany of speakers. So at the very highest level, our deputy administrator, who is the highest ranking person at Federal Highway was going to speak, and then we had a litany of speakers from NHTSA and from basically every single discipline, all high-level people. There was going to be 15 or so speakers that, all believe in what we're doing and supporting us and playing a role from what they can do with advancing traffic incident. We got a tremendous response to speakers, almost too many speakers if that's ever a problem to have. But it was extremely impressive what we put together, what Jim put together for the mall. And but we're going to end up doing something. We're just not sure what. But just another second, if anyone wants to type a question into the chat pod. But if not, if you remember Rebecca's map with all the TIM committees that are going on throughout the country, we love maps here at Federal Highway, but they do tell a story. The TIM committees, that are meeting at least quarterly. Some might meet monthly, some meet every other month. With continued advancement towards TIM. So people, just like you, are meeting as a routine to advance the state of practice with TIM. And we are changing the state of practice. The training, look at the training map. How impressive is that? That with the progress that you folks have made throughout the last few years. So we have, I think someone, Chuck maybe mentioned, we have a lot of momentum, but we want to keep going. We are changing the way traffic incidents are handled in this country, slow but sure. We're making it safer. We're more efficient. But you can make the difference. You are the champions. You're the ones. So I challenge you to just do one thing within your sphere of influence. Don't think you can't make a difference, because you can make a difference. So. What can I do to advance TIM in my region and make things safe? So with that, I don't see any questions, but I do appreciate everyone that's participated today. Jim and I love working with you all, and we love kind of working and marching together to advance the state of the practice and the safety of responders throughout this country. With that, I think we'll close out and have a great week. Give you back 15 minutes or so time, and thank you again for joining us today and for all that you do every day. So thanks very much.